Hi, welcome to another edition of Magical Soul Adventures with Sharon Cohen and me, Lianne Bridges. And we have been doing twice a month doing a women's circle and afterwards doing kind of a discussion of what came up, and so that we can share it with a wider audience who were not able to join us. So just I'll introduce myself quickly and then hand it over a little bit to Sharon. So my work is involved in helping people to reach more and more of their potential and express their gifts in the world, whether they're individuals or business owners or leaders helping others do the same. And so I'm going to just, maybe I'll pass it over to you, Sharon, to introduce yourself, and then we can get into the conversation. Does that work for you?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
So my name is Sharon Cohen, and I'm a holistic naturopath helping women for over 25 years to feel great in their body, in their mind, and to really balance hormones, have good digestion, and to alleviate any suffering that they may be feeling. So I'm passionate to be here with you, Lianne.
Awesome.
And have this conversation, and we're not sure where it's going to go, but
we never do. That's the fun part, right?
That's the fun part, because we're actually just here in the moment creating.
I love it. Yeah. So we had a wonderful women's group yesterday, Friday. This is Saturday morning, and we had about 15 to 20, somewhere around that, women on the call, and it's been exciting because it's growing each time we get together. We really see the need for women to come together and have these discussions, things that are kind of bubbling up for them at this time in particular. And since we can't gather in person, it's really helpful. So to let you know, if you're interested, we'll have the links on here as well of how to find out more about the next one coming up. And one of the things that really resonated or kind of started a conversation with you and I, Sharon, this morning was this thing that comes up quite a bit, but it was sparked by a conversation. And one woman was talking about how she's in joy when she wakes up, and then through the day and at the end. And another woman asked, "How are you so joyful all the time?" And it was almost as if, and I think sometimes, Sharon, you and I get that comment as well. And we're not, well, there's a couple of very different directions that conversation can go in. But one of the things we wanted to talk about is that transformation doesn't just happen overnight. We don't, one day we're really struggling in our life, and the next day everything is rosy and we're happy all the time. And that we talk a little bit about how transformation is not like this. So you can call it transformation or healing. I like to almost use those words interchangeably, because you can heal your body, but you can also heal your career, your relationships, different things, like, you can call them change for the better, but it doesn't just always go like this or like that. And it can be pretty messy, and it can be more of a spiral. So you had some ideas around what you wanted to talk about there as well. Maybe you can share with the audience that, Sharon.
We had the conversation about, like, what is transformation. So I see it a bit different, transformation and healing, in the sense of, when we transform, it means, let's say I've come into this situation with these glasses on, right? And all of a sudden, in an instant, something actually physiologically shifts in the brain, and I see it through different glasses, right? And I think I see a lot of women who say, and yesterday it was perfect in our gathering, because another woman asked this woman who says, I'm kind of happy all the time. How did you get there? And I think a lot of us are looking for, give me the magic key so I could be happy all the time. So I think there's a couple of things that happen.
Magic pill, right?
The magic pill. And I'm often, given I'm a naturopath, I'm often asked for, what's the magic pill for this and that? And I have to, and it's really to explain that healing works in many different ways. And it could be, like you said, over time, but transformation can happen in an instant. And this woman gave an explanation about it happened when her sister passed away. And so can you sit there and go, today I'm going to have a transformation. So I'm not going to see, I'm going to see my relationship in a new light, and I'm going to be happy in it all the time. Right? I don't think that works quite like that. But sometimes if we are shaken up, as in losing a loved one, and that's something you know very much about, Lianne, sometimes it's like our glasses are switched,
Mm,
and something within us has a transformation such that we don't see life in the same way.
mm, mhm,
Right? So that for me is transformation.
mm,
That can happen in a split second. However, healing happens in a spiral. And also, a lot of women say to me, but oh, I can't believe that's up again in my face. I thought I already handled that. I can't believe that my son is still triggering me, and it's the same story. Right. And here we are visiting it again. And I
mhm.
remember when I was younger, every time things got quiet, I would go in digging. Okay, what's the next piece of my growth and evolution where I need to heal? And I'd go looking for it. And I spent so much energy doing that until I realized, not that long ago, maybe in the last decade or so, that when it's appropriate, that the next piece shows itself. And when you're triggered by somebody, it's actually a gift.
Mhm.
And if we could look at that way as an opportunity to look at, where am I stuck? Where am I in denial? Where am I trying to repress something that's there? And maybe this is an opportunity to actually look at it, right? And because the eye cannot see itself, only in a reflection, right? Only in the mirror. The world is our mirror. And so we're being mirrored something with the opportunity. So could we look at it being triggered, instead of like, "Ugh, I'm so angry, I'm triggered again, and I'm so mad at that person," as, wow, this is an opportunity to look at myself and what in there doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, exactly. And I see to me, and this is interesting because we always say words are so distinct to each of us. And it's really important to understand that and explore that. So, Sharon and I, we've known each other for years and years, and I didn't realize you and I have a different perspective of the word transformation. It's even in my brand, designing transformation. So my perspective of transformation is, yes, it can happen in an instant, but it also can take a lifetime. And it can,
Yes.
the journey of transformation can be a lifetime. And I think one of the things for me that's really distinct is, in any transformation, there to really be, uh, well, effective. I don't know if that's the right word, but in transformation, there's a healing journey. That's, you can change and not have it, I guess, better. You can be like, I woke up one day and my husband died and I was in deep grief. So from that perspective, my life changed, transformed. But for me to evolve to where I am now, and I could have been stuck there, I needed to heal so many aspects of me that had to do not only with the grief, but things about who I am and who I am on this planet. And so there was a lot of healing or changing or evolving or growing or whatever that took place through that whole journey. And
Mm.
I love what you're saying, because you can't just plan for it. You can't just say, okay, today I'm going to heal, or today I'm going to change, or today I'm going to evolve. And yet we often are consciously or subconsciously are crying for something different. So let's say we're in a relationship that's not really working for us. We're not asking for a divorce or whatever, but then, or we're not completely healthy. And then the universe presents an opportunity for us to come face to face with that. And I come back to kind of on a global scale, there's so many things that we've been crying as a society for healing. So to have schools that are much more kind and represent different types of kids and on and on and on, right? Or business and economy that's way more fair, and allows us to express our greater gifts of light. And we have a political system that's not corrupt, and you name it, we've asked for in some way, shape, or form, even in just looking at what we don't like, that in some way is sending out energy of what we want. And in that is what comes, the universe delivers something that rocks us, COVID, right? And then from there, it gives each one of us an opportunity to look at that part of ourselves and see, that's an interesting, is this an opportunity to create something new from something that's really in front of me that I really don't like? And yet the thing is, we get so stuck on the thing we don't want that it's hard to create the vision for where we actually want to go.
Mm.
So we could be stuck on, we to come back to health, let's say, stuck on the fact that I have, let's say this is your area, so you can, I'm sure, kind of riff on this one, but let's say some digestive problems. And if all I keep worrying about is the digestive problems and then taking medicine, the pill, as you said, to try to get that quick healing or the quick transformation, and then, it's not working, then, it's not working. It gives you the opportunity to really go deeper. And, when you talk to people about what is it that's inside of you that you can't digest, maybe you can kind of take over from there, is that constant presence of that disease and dis-ease inside of you.
Yes.
Is, instead of just focusing on it, it's like creating that vision of how do I want to be healed? What does it feel like to feel better? And what are the things underneath of that could be causing that problem?
Mm.
Talk a little bit about
Mhm.
that.
Sure. So
Or something else, wherever you want to go.
so there's just so many words of wisdom, like little seeds that you planted here. I'm just kind of like, okay,
Which one do I
where do
want
we
to
go?
pick?
Where do we go from here? Right?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? So I just want to, revert back to this transformation piece, because yes, it could be like you said, in a split second. And so the split second was, I have, I think, a story that of what happened to me that was one of the most powerful moments in my whole life. So my mother passed away a year and a half earlier. I was 27, and I went to do a transformational course. At the time, I hadn't spoken to my father in about 5 years. We were not in good standing, and my mother had passed, and I remember talking to somebody and saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm an orphan. I have no parents." And in that moment, I said, "Oh my God, I have a father somewhere." And it was kind of like, what do I do with that? And then I was sent by my dear friend's parents to go do this transformational workshop. And I sat there, and there was no possibility really of me contacting my father, because number one, it was scary. Number two, he was an asshole. Like, I had all this story about it, right? And I'm sitting in this course, and I don't remember, it was some exercise, and I said, I'll go there. And I went to heal the wounds of losing my mother, who was actually my best friend as well. And that's why I went. And I'm sitting there doing this exercise, and whatever happened, something happened. And all of a sudden there was this opening, a little teeny little opening of maybe, I could get to know my father as an adult, and that I only really knew him through the words of my mother, my grandfather, and kind of a distorted vision or a vision that I had of him as this ogre. But now that I'm an adult, what would that be like? So there was this little tiny opening. So that was the shift, or the transformation, that I went in there. It was that was closed. And then all of a sudden there was a little crack. And they gave us an opportunity to make a phone call. And I was shaking. My stomach was in knots. I was sick to my stomach, really. And I picked up the phone and I called him, and it was like, whoa. It was like, whoa. It was really difficult. But then the healing started, right? So then over the next 5 years of getting to know him and meeting him, it was a struggle, but I got to see myself and all the things that you were talking about. I got to look at what is blocking me, what am I resisting, and that's when my healing, when that transformation or that crack opened, that's when there was opportunity to then really explore and start the healing process. Did you say something? No.
I have so a couple of people working back here, and I'm trying to get their attention to be quiet because I had
Okay.
myself on mute there. So I'm gonna mute myself and yell at them. So keep going. I'll just be 1 second.
You do that. So, yes, so that's when the healing started. And it, it was a difficult time,
Mhm.
but I had a carrot in front of me. And the carrot at the beginning, so there was this thing that pulled me forward that felt almost bigger than me. And that was that if I didn't get to a place to forgive him, I am carrying this heavy weight for the rest of my life. And it was a big burden. So
Mhm.
that's how it started. That I knew that it was important for me to get to a place of forgiveness so that I could lighten my load, whatever that looked like. And I had no idea what it looked like. Not only that, the other motivation was I felt my brother needed a father.
Mhm.
And so I had these two motivations, right? And I kept taking one step in front of the other. And the work was really my work.
Mhm.
And the forgiveness was really for me. And along the lines, it created, I'm so grateful to say that 20 years later, I have this like love affair with my dad.
Mhm.
And that never would have happened if I never had that little crack of a transformation, of an opening,
Mhm.
and then went on with a motivation to just keep one foot in front of the other, exploring the possibilities of this. And my son, I spoke with my son yesterday, who's in Belgium. He's turning 30 this summer, and about how wonderful he is that my dad had a second chance to really have a deep connection with his three grandchildren, and what a gift it's been for them and for him.
Mhm. Very good. Awesome. Thank you. I'm wondering if we also chat about the conversation around purpose, because I think that was something where we were talking a lot in the women's circle about um, self-care,
Yes.
and we can maybe talk further about that, or maybe make this video a little bit shorter or whatever. But I think that the conversation we had before we got on here around would be really helpful to people around the concept of purpose and vision and meaning and striving and so forth. So if you will, maybe I could just kind of kick that off a bit, because
Please.
one of so there's obviously a lot around in self-care around health, your physical well-being, which you're obviously an expert in, and you give so much wonderful recommendations for people and things to do. And if you don't know already, you should follow Sharon on Instagram and Facebook, especially Instagram, because anyone can follow, but she's got a big following on Facebook as well. And her newsletter puts out a lot of information around self-care, and depending on the time of year, depending on what's going on in the energy out there, there's tons of really great information. And then also tips and giggles. You've got like oodles and oodles of content on there as well, right, around self-care. And so one of the things that people get stuck in, that both of us see, is this idea that I have to find my purpose. And what we were talking about is, again, as a kind of a word, purpose can be, seen as something overwhelming, that I have to have something very big in my life that I'm doing in order for me to be fulfilled, to have a sense of meaning or fulfillment in my life, and to be in joy or satisfaction or happy or just feeling happy and feeling good in my life. And I think that's where one of the things that we wanted to talk a little, or we talked a little bit about, is that it doesn't have meaning, is not something that is out there. You have to do. It is about that sense of, if we can change our perspective to say it's more about what brings a sense of joy and fulfillment and a soul's expression to you, that can be the simplest thing, like sipping a beautiful coffee in the morning and you love it and you feel good within. And if you can identify that that is an important part, or fulfilling part of your life, just in that alone, that could be what we would call, or some people would call, purpose, as opposed to, I've got to go and lead a movement with 1 million people, and if I don't do that, I don't have any direction in my life.
Mhm.
And if we can start to see that those little moments that bring us joy, that bring us wonder, are parts of us in that healing transformation of raising our light. And just in being that, we are holding greater light on this planet.
Mm.
And there's almost no more meaning in life, more higher purpose than doing that. So instead of that searching out there that causes a lot of suffering, and there has to be something bigger, and I don't have meaning, don't have a sense of fulfillment, can we look? It always comes back to this, right? Can we look at our own way of, can we examine our own way of looking at things and say, maybe there is already purpose in my own day-to-day life. And if I just hold more gratitude and see the things that really bring that joy, and see how that can be transformative and healing, just in a moment for a short period of time, and then more and more of those, and then that light gets greater. And to recognize that that is important, to find that, and to find that gratitude, to find that sense of fulfillment and joy, and to spread it without ever doing anything, just by being who you are, that is spreading that light. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the meaning or purpose, or how you also see clients quite a bit that are suffering with
Sure.
thriving.
I see a lot of middle-aged women moving or in menopause. And that is a great change of life for most women, right? Because a lot of women have been raising children, going to work. They might be retiring or changing their work. They may, the kids grow up, and maybe that was their sense of meaning and purpose, to take care of their children. For a lot of us, I think it was for a long time, right? And so now what? So now what? And one thing we discussed yesterday that I think is really important is, a lot of us, me included, were brought up with being taught how to take care of our families, our children first, and our husbands, or vice versa, right? And so that becomes the sole focus. And some of us were told, well, it's selfish to put yourself first.
Yes.
Right? And so this is a beautiful time. Well, any time is a beautiful time to put yourself first, I believe. And I think the younger generation is getting it earlier than we did.
Yes.
I see a lot of young ladies in their 20s, right? And so I think us women in our 50s and 60s in this generation have done a lot of the hard work paving the way for that. It's okay to put yourself first. Not only is it okay, but what a great example we are to the younger ones, that, we are worthy, not because we've earned it or done anything. We are just worthy because we are here as a beautiful, magnificent being on this planet, to take our space, to put ourselves first, to nourish our souls and ourselves, right? And so something very important What was your question? I don't want to get off target here,
No, I
but
think you're right on
you were
exactly about, well, we were talking a little bit about meaning and purpose, but I think that
meaning,
idea
yes,
of putting yourself first was a big
putting
conversation.
yourself first.
It's so
And so
important.
as your kids grow and you have it, thank you, Leanne, and you have a different, you have opportunity, more time maybe to have a different focus. And even COVID, I feel this whole year has been, all the distractions have been taken away, right? Because there's not much to do really,
Yeah.
nowhere to go. So guess what? The focus is on, the opportunity of it is, what do I need?
Mhm.
What, like you said, Leanne, nourishes me? What's my soul's expression here?
Mhm.
And if I'm not taking care of my kids anymore, and I get a lot of women who are grieving over that,
Mhm.
and there is a grieving period
Mhm.
when we lose people to death or moving out, or just they don't need us anymore as our kids grow, and allow us to feel and to go through different stages of grieving, as the kids grow and they don't need us, and and um and then and that's different for everybody. There's
Mhm.
a difference between, I allow the feelings and I grieve and I hang on to it for months and weeks and years, and it becomes what defines me,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so as we're moving through that, it's also a blessing, and when we feel that that's not taking all our energy, to start focusing on, well, what excites me, what turns me on, what pulls me into aliveness, and what makes me retract and repel into myself, away from. So our body is always talking, our cells are always talking. So it's a time, now that we have more space and more time for ourselves through COVID, or through not being so busy in life, period, to start listening to this deep, intuitive, voice within, that's within, that we all have, right? And it starts with the as maybe whispers, we start to hear it. And then it may get louder and louder. And if we don't listen to the intuitive whispers, sometimes we are then, it's so loud and maybe as a dis-ease, something, right? And once there's a dis-ease, we needed that to stop us in life and look. And
Mhm.
I think disease could be a wonderful opportunity, right? To look and see now what's working in my life, what's not, and what changes may need to take place at this time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful explanation of self-care, which is kind of was our topic yesterday, that when we take the time to, so let me back up again for what you were saying, is that we are kind of maybe in some way naturally doing what nourishes us to an extent by looking at after others, but sometimes to such an extent that we forget ourselves.
Yes.
And then when that's taken away, it really forcing us to say, okay, what is it that really nourishes me? What brings that vitality? And what is it I'm passionate about? What makes me come alive? So if we were to describe that as purpose differently, because that word purpose triggers a lot of people. It has to be this big thing, or versus what brings me alive. And but then even in that, because we got so lost in helping others, we've lost what nourishes us. We lost that idea of what makes us come alive. And then people, and we see, I think both, well, I can speak for me, I see a lot of women and men who get to that point where they actually have more time to be able to put towards themselves, and often in retirement, and then they don't know what nourishes them, they don't know what brings them alive, and that panics them. They're like, oh, I don't know. And so I love what you said, then it's like just to be with it and be okay with, you don't know right now, but that doesn't mean you're not going to know. It's not going to reveal itself to you. And can you be in that acceptance and in the quietness and the stillness because we,
Mm.
up to that point have been so busy in our lives and putting things in there. This is now giving us that time. And that's, again, what's happening with COVID as well. But people who haven't nurtured that part of them, what society calls us selfish, the things that you love, the things that nourish you, that bring you alive, your soul's expression and all. It's okay that you get to a point where you don't know what that is in some way. I've lost myself, whatever. It's okay. This is now the opportunity to slowly, surely find your way. And in the finding your way is amazing adventure and joy. If you allow it, if you have that perspective,
Mm.
oh, I don't know it, flog myself versus, hey, I don't know it. Hey, what could come up from this, and just see and explore that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a lot about this, this conversation around self-care that's maybe not as traditionally as we would talk about, but around seeing the transformation and seeing that soul's expression and being okay with where we are, wherever we are. And the
That's
mindset that plays a role in that always. And, oh, someone else is retired. They've already figured out they're giving to this, that, and the other foundation. They're going to do all this stuff. I don't know. Oh, okay. That's okay. I'm just exploring it and seeing, what I love and what brings me alive.
mm. Lovely. I
Mm.
love what you said. And at the very beginning, you were talking, about some of us feel there's a difference between I feel nourished and full, and then I give,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and I'm even mindfully giving. In other words, if I'm asked of something, it's okay to step back and take a moment and say, I'm going to check in with me to
Mm-hmm.
see if I feel, healthy, well, and nourished to give to you. I
How
think
much,
that's
how
beautiful.
many
It's
of
a
us do
different
that?
place.
How
It's a
many of us
different
do that?
place than, oh, for sure, I'll do it
Yep.
because I feel I should, or I'm a bad person, or I'll lose their love.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, how many things do we say yes to because it's like an automatic programming?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so, it's okay to take a breath and say, well, I'll get back to you on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
It is
get back to you on
so
that. And
freeing.
boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to set our boundaries. And as we do, it's almost like we give other people the permission to do the same and
Mm-hmm.
say, wow, that's really powerful. She didn't say yes right away. Like, first, it might be agitating to the people around us that are used to it because we've trained them how to be
Yep.
with us, right? We've trained them that, yes, they say jump and we say, how high? And all of a sudden
Or
it's like,
society has.
oh, society has too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
all of a
sometimes you
sudden
come
we're like,
across people who are not like that, and then they get labeled because they've learned themselves how to do this, and a new person meets them, and they're like, oh, they're selfish. They're. So it may not be that they've trained, but you've been trained, or society has been trained to do that, right? And I
yes,
think that that is often when we do change, we do start to set our boundaries. We start to hear that from other people. That's selfish,
yes,
and we have to work through that. That's not an easy process because we've
yes,
got all that
because
conditioning.
we want to be loved.
Yeah, and when we hear it, and
We want to feel loved, right? And maybe we'll piss somebody off,
yeah, yeah, and
right?
we have that pattern. I could hear my mom saying, "Don't be selfish," or whoever, that our teachers. You just hear it. You don't even consciously do it. It's like, okay, well, this person's going to be upset with me. And that is such a root of suffering, and such a root of imprisonment on our
Yes,
lives. That's
yes,
where real sovereignty comes from, is really being able to take that time and check in with yourself, and then have the courage to say, I don't think that's going to work for me, and then be willing to take the consequences of how the person reacts to it without
yes.
absorbing it, right? Observe without absorbing.
Yes, yes, and get a good posse around you who could
Mhm.
support you in that, for the transition time that it might take. Somebody who really gets you and you could,
Yeah.
and you feel safe with them. And
Mm.
you could just say, this is what I'm doing. It's really difficult. Could you just hold space for me to, as I work through this? And that's the power of coming together in communities of women too.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's something else I want to address, something very powerful you said before, because you kept using this word allowing when you were speaking.
Mm.
Can you allow it to present itself?
Mhm.
And I just want to make this distinction because when you say allowing to me, the vision I have is like this flower that just blossoms in its own time. Like a flower doesn't blossom overnight. It's
Mhm.
not like it's a seed and then you wake up in the morning and it's like in full bloom, right? So I want to make a distinction between the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And we've been living in a masculine energy world for at least 2000 years, that
Mhm.
let's say. And now it's a time where the masculine and the feminine are coming together. I see it like at the altar for the sacred marriage. And so what does that mean? So the masculine is more, and it doesn't matter if you're male or female. We have it all within us, women, men, all of it. And they're just different energies, and we need both.
Mhm.
And both create a beautiful dance in
Mhm.
equilibrium. But we've been in a very doing
Mhm.
world, right? A very doing time up until now, a very rational and a very, what else would you use? What other word? Linear. And what other
Direction,
words, Leanne? Sorry?
direction, direction oriented. Yeah.
Direction oriented. And so the feminine is more the allowing
Mhm.
things to unfold, right? It's like what I spoke about before. I used to go digging. Okay, what's the next thing I have to work on? It was doing. Or I remember with customers, I would call like 100 cold calls. It took so much energy because it was about doing and how many cold calls did you do? And
It's all
when I
about
was
the
in
numbers,
sales,
you
all
know?
about the
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when I discovered like this feminine allowing, it was more about quieting myself, going inside and being still. And in the stillness, sometimes I remember somebody's name would come to me and I go, that's weird. I haven't spoken to them in 10 years. But I got this message to call them and I reached out, I remember, to call, and it was, they opened like 10 doors of sales for me without me working so hard
Yeah.
because I just quieted down and allowed, that the myself to connect to all that is, because all the messages are the messages come within us. If we could just, so it's more the intuition,
Mhm.
the being instead of the doing, the what else, Leah? What are other words that
Yeah,
you
and I
could
think
use?
that, yeah, it's that marriage of the two, and that it's not to get
Yes.
rid of one. And I think
Yes.
that it's the marriage of those two things together that's just really powerful. And because it's been so strong one way, it's like it needs almost that pendulum shift to the other side
Yes.
because it's been so indoctrinated for so
Yes.
long.
And
Yeah,
it's not about the not doing, because when I got the
yeah,
message to call that person,
yeah,
then it was doing from a place of inspiration. I was inspired
yeah,
to take an action. It wasn't action out of fear. Oh
yeah,
my God, I'm not going to make my quota this month. I have to call, all these
exactly.
people. That took so much energy.
Hmm.
But the getting still and allowing, oh, okay, so maybe I could not work so much, but I could work a little smarter. And the smarter to me was quietening the mind and just allowing the just inspiration to come in all different voices, shall we say.
I'm living that so much now, more than I ever have. And I was very much living the other way. I'm brought up in the 60s and 70s and 80s and going to school, and everything taught my career, what taught me that. And I'm seeing the great evidence, and I keep getting messages more and more to be in that space of first being and then acting from inspiration. So being what I want to create, the feelings that I want. So if, you never know that I might say, I want this kind of business, let's say, client. But if instead I say, I really want to have a client that I can play with more and express more of my creativity and come up with new ideas of, I don't know, conscious leadership, whatever, make it up. And then somebody appears that would have been very different than what I would have tried to force and create. And I think, you and I create the magical soul adventures exactly from that perspective. And it's always so easy and flow. And that's the benefit. But and I think people perceive both sides. They perceive you have to work. It's the Protestant work ethic in order to get anything. And then there's the other side that people hear this message. I don't have to do anything. I'll just sit on a couch and things will come to me. But it's the marriage of the two, of being on that couch and being quiet. And then when you are really inspired and allowing synchronicities to happen and be inspired, and then to be in the flow. And it doesn't happen overnight for me anyways. It takes time to get more and more into that. And I seeing the results of it are phenomenal.
And I was kind of thrown into that when you had your beautiful awakening festival, the second one, like the one that I was involved in. And I guess, I believe we have some soul agreements. And I believe that we're not conscious of maybe all of them, and certain things are going to happen at certain times in life. And so just before that festival, I was in a car accident.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. And so I had this PowerPoint in my mind that I was going to do for this festival, because I was speaking in front of quite a lot of people. And something happened in this car accident in my brain that I couldn't do a PowerPoint for the life of me. It just would not compute. But I knew I still had to show up for myself. And so I did. And it was really scary because in my mind, the PowerPoint was going to be the thing that would ground me. Right? It's the way I always did things. It was the right way to do it and to ground me. And then I show up with just me and no PowerPoint. And I was like a little terrified. And I had to, why? Because I had to trust myself and I had nightmares the night before that I would be there and nothing would come out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had to trust that just being in the moment, being present, being conscious, and allowing inspiration to move through me, what I asked for was that something came out that made a difference for somebody. And that's the best I could do. And so I was there in my raw state. So actually that trust I was forced into it. Well, I guess I wasn't forced because I didn't have to show up, but in me, I felt like I had to show up, and that's the best I could do. So in that moment, there was this trust, and I stood there, and all there was to do was share the truth. And I just said I was in a car accident, and this is what I have to say. And I was like, I teary-eyed, and it was emotional, and everybody started clapping, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And all I shared what was there to share. And I was real. And
amazing. Wow, this has been a great conversation. I think we're running a bit on the time, and we can continue again in a couple of weeks. And I'm hoping that this conversation around healing and transformation and self-care and meaning and being in inspiration versus the doing can help some people out there. And if it does, and you've listened to us and you might want to share it with friends, we're really happy that you did do that. And if you'd like to join us for our next Women's Circle, it's coming up, just check in. We'll have the links below. Is there any last things you'd like to say, Sharon?
I just want to say that it's a joy and a pleasure to always create with you, Lianne, and to surrender into whatever is next. And it's such a relief to not have to have an agenda and to not have to know a bunch of stuff in order to do something like this. So if anybody else is inspired, just step into it, stand in it, and and express yourself, whatever's there to be expressed. Because if you're feeling it, I'm sure somebody else is too.
I love that. And I would say for me, and I think because I know you well enough too, you probably would agree, the people that I follow the most on YouTube and stuff are doing that. Exactly. You can see they're not got their PowerPoint and they're going through all their points. They're really riffing and really being in the conversation. And I find in that conversation with one other person or more than one other person, with each, more comes out. Like if I was just to sit here and try to talk about any of this stuff, it's not going to be the same as here I'm with you, and then we can back and forth, and that I think is really wonderful. And those are the people that I love following on YouTube and stuff like that myself.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
very
So
cool.
keep it raw.
Yeah,
Keep it
excellent.
raw. Do what feels well in your heart.
Mhm.
And come
Of
in, if
course.
this spoke to you, come and join us for more of these conversations. We'd love
Excellent.
your input as well as to maybe what we could talk about moving forward.
Perfect. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.
Many blessings.
Bye-bye.